We never expected the weather to turn that fast. One moment, it was just another cold Alaskan morning, wind slicing through our parkas, boots crunching over powder that glittered like crushed glass. The next, everything stopped. Not quiet still, like the world itself had forgotten how to breathe. I was halfway through a routine radio check when the signal died mid-sentence. No static, no feedback, just silence. Not the kind that comes with distance, but the kind that feels alive, listening. I tapped the headset, reset the channel, switched frequencies. Nothing. Across the snowbank, Sergeant Miles looked at me. His brows drew together beneath the rim of his beanie. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I stepped out of the comms tent, pulling my parka tight. The cold hit differently, wrongly. It didn't just sting the skin. It sank deeper, like something invisible was reaching inside, trying to draw the warmth right out of my bones. The wind had stopped entirely, yet the sky had darkened, heavy clouds rolling over us like bruised flesh. Snow began to fall, broad, slow flakes that drifted down like ash, not snow. They didn't bounce when they landed. They just stayed, as though the ground had been waiting for them. Something about the air felt corrupted. It tasted metallic, sharp, like copper or blood. When I looked toward the tree line, the pines stood unnaturally still. For a split second, I could have sworn the branches weren't swaying. They were breathing, expanding, contracting, watching. I blinked hard. Told myself it was exhaustion. Altitude does that. Cold does that. We'd been trained for sensory fatigue, drilled to distrust what the mind invents when it's freezing and starved for sleep. But training can't prepare you for the moment when the world stops behaving like the world. I rubbed my hands together and took one last look at that silent forest before ducking back into the tent. Even then, a knot had already begun twisting in my gut, a warning that something about this place was wrong. Name's Corporal Javier Vega, 9 years Army, 4 deployments. Recon in Helmand, blackout patrols in Kandahar. I've patched up bullet wounds with one hand and held dog tags in the other. But nothing, not war, not death, prepared me for Fort Glay. You won't find it on most maps. It's buried deep in Alaska, entombed in ice and silence. Officially, they call it a missile defense installation. Off the record, everyone knows it used to be something else, something older, the kind of place where classified projects are sent to be forgotten. We were dropped in by rotor wing, blades carving through a sky too clear, too empty. Task Unit Orion, 6 men. Lieutenant Kessler, calm, methodical. Sergeant Miles, old-school grunt, never without a dip in his lip. Hale, our medic, sharp mind, shaky hands. Holloway and Banks, young, restless, always pushing the line. Our mission sounded simple. 10 days of cold weather survival training. No combat, no contact, no threat. Just endurance, navigation, and learning how to survive in terrain that punishes every mistake. But Alaska doesn't test you, it unmakes you. The cold here was alive. It didn't burn. It settled inside your bones and whispered memories of every bruise, every fall. The air itself refused to move. Even the trees looked carved in place. That first night I lay in my bivvy, staring through ice-crusted fabric at a sky so still it felt painted. My breath came in short, sharp bursts, each one slicing my lungs. I could hear my pulse thudding in my ears. It wasn't fear yet, more like the sense that the land itself was holding its breath, waiting. And deep down, part of me already knew we weren't alone. The first 2 days felt routine, cold, miserable, but manageable. Fire watch every 4 hours, comms checks twice a day. Kessler kept us on schedule. Hale monitored vitals. Miles cursed the coffee. For a while, it felt like any other winter op. Just snow, fatigue, repetition. Then the little things started. Our thermal drone blinked offline for 10 minutes during a clear sky sweep. Just gone. When it came back, it logged nothing unusual. Hale blamed the cold. Electronics hate sub-zero. Maybe. That night, I noticed the forest hadn't moved once since we arrived. Not a sway, not a creak. You ever stand in silence so deep it starts creating sounds that aren't there? The rush of your own blood, the crunch of your heartbeat, the whisper of thoughts that don't feel like yours. It started feeling like the trees were leaning closer every time I looked away. By day 3, Banks was unraveling. His eyes were sunken, his skin pale with sleeplessness. He kept rubbing the back of his neck, muttering that someone was whispering his name from outside his tent. We checked the perimeter, nothing but snow. No prints, no sound. Just that still, suffocating quiet. Then Holloway saw something. We were on overwatch when he nudged me, silent, pointing past the tree line. There was a figure, tall, motionless, half shrouded in fog, about 30 meters out. We blinked and it was gone. No prints, no trace, just wind sculpting new shapes in the snow. Kessler ordered us to log it and stay sharp, but no one slept that night. Miles sat by the fire for hours, sharpening his knife in slow, rhythmic strokes. He said it calmed him. I sat across from him, staring at my own hands under the firelight, and for a heartbeat, they didn't look like mine. The shape was off, the skin too pale. Then I blinked, and everything snapped back. We didn't talk about it in the morning. Out here, you don't give nightmares a name. Not unless you're ready to see them come alive. Just before sunrise, we realized Banks was gone. His sleeping bag lay ripped open, inner lining stiff with blood. His boots were still beside it. One sock sat crumpled nearby, soaked dark and frozen. At first, we told ourselves he'd gone to relieve himself and gotten lost. A fatal mistake in this cold. But the tracks told a different story. Bare feet. No boots, no snowshoes. A trail of bloody prints leading straight into the woods. Not away from something, but toward it. Kessler gave the order. We geared up fast, rifles, flares, trauma kit. My fingers were numb as I tightened my laces until the skin burned. Hale packed medical gear. Miles just loaded extra mags without a word. We followed the trail half a mile through tightening woods. Every sound felt amplified. The crunch of our boots, the hiss of our breath. Then, the prints just stopped. Not scattered, stopped mid-stride. No sign of Banks, no drag marks, just empty snow. Then came the moan, low, broken, from behind us. We spun around, rifles raised. Banks stumbled out of the tree line, barefoot, frost-bitten black creeping up his toes, blood leaking from his ears. His lips were blue, eyes wide and glassy. He collapsed into the snow, gasping, whispering over and over. They're not dead. They're changing. His skin was ice cold, his breath reeking of iron and rot. Hale tried to stabilize him. Kessler radioed base. Static. Dead again. The air thickened. Heavy. Charged. Wrong. The kind of wrong you feel in your teeth. Sweat froze on my back. My pulse thundered in my neck. That night, nobody talked. Miles kept his gloves on. I sat awake, rifle across my knees, watching the tree line like it might blink. Sometime after midnight, I saw prints, barefoot, circling the camp. I woke Hale. He swore he hadn't moved, but his eyes, they told another story. That far-off haunted look people get when they're already half gone. At dawn, one of our trail cameras had been turned to face us. Every image on it was corrupted, smeared frames, motion blurs that looked like something had moved too fast or wasn't supposed to be seen at all. Something was out there. Or worse, something was already in here. We had to know what took Banks, and what brought him back, whispering like a prophet of the dead. Hale said it was hypothermia messing with his mind. Maybe we wanted to believe that, needed to. But deep down, we already knew better. Kessler pulled an old survival map from the kit. Edges water-stained, half erased. In the corner, barely legible, was a label. Facility 017B, Cold War era, decommissioned bioweapons site. Miles muttered, "You think this is connected?" Kessler didn't answer. Just circled it with his pencil and said, "Gear up." We moved at dawn. The snow was knee-deep, the wind slicing across our faces like razors. Every breath burned. Every step felt heavier, like the land itself wanted us to turn back. Banks stayed behind under Hale's watch. He wasn't speaking anymore, just staring out into the white like he was waiting for something to answer. Facility 017B didn't exist on any satellite feed. We found it by compass, half buried beneath snow and pine. Rusted warning signs leaned in the drifts, English etched over with faint Russian. The hatch seal had been broken long ago. Inside, the air was colder than outside. It smelled sterile at first, bleach, metal. But beneath that was something sweet and wrong, like rot wearing a mask of sugar. Our lights sliced through peeling paint, frost-coated pipes and welded doors scorched black at the seams. We went deeper, and then we found the lab. Old machines, half sunken into concrete. Consoles still humming with a faint current. In the center, a glass chamber filled with pulsing amber fluid. Floating inside were human brains, suspended in metal cradles, each tagged, numbered. Some looked decades old, some looked fresh. The documents scattered across the desk told only fragments of the truth. Half translations, smeared ink, and diagrams that made my skin crawl. English bled into Russian. Words like neural integration, symbiosis, and stage 3 reconstruction jumped out in jagged handwriting. Notes scrawled in the margin said the organism didn't kill its hosts, it rebuilt them. Cell by cell, thought by thought. Personality erased, overwritten like old software being reformatted. Kessler stepped back slowly, one hand on his sidearm, the other trembling. This is Cold War era, he muttered. Had to be. But the power's still running. These systems should have died decades ago. He was right. The monitors flickered weakly, but they were alive. The hum of machinery echoed through the frost-coated corridors. We weren't the first ones down here, and deep down we knew we weren't alone either. Then the lights flickered, violently this time. Something heavy moved between us and the generators. The air buzzed, deep and electric, a vibration that sank into my chest until my heartbeat stuttered. My ears rang. Miles dropped to one knee, gritting his teeth, blood trickling from his nose. Kessler whispered something, soft, rhythmic, almost like a lullaby. I didn't recognize the language, but it felt old. Older than the station, older than any of us. We bolted. The cold outside hit like a wall. We stumbled into the blizzard, half-blind, lungs burning, gasping like we'd just surfaced from drowning. My teeth wouldn't stop chattering, but it wasn't the cold anymore. Something had followed us up from that hole, something that didn't like being disturbed. That night, Holloway vanished. His rifle stood upright in the snow beside the fire like a gravestone. No prints, no trail, no sound. Just the rifle and a single dog tag pressed into the ice beside it. No one spoke. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was listening. The cold wasn't just weather. It was sentient. 4 of us left now. Me, Kessler, Miles, and Hale. Banks barely moved, barely blinked. His pupils were blown wide, skin pale as wax. Hale hovered near him, checking vitals, whispering reassurances he didn't believe. When he thought no one was watching, I saw him shake his head. Then Kessler started slipping. At first it was small things. He'd stop mid-sentence, stare into space, hum that same broken melody. I asked him once what it was. He blinked, slow and confused. "Something my mother used to sing," he said. "Haven't heard it since I was 6. That night we did the one thing we shouldn't have. We went back. The bunker called to us, like a wound begging to be reopened. We descended deeper this time, past the labs, past the flickering signs that warned authorized personnel only. The air grew colder the further we went, the kind of cold that eats the sound out of your breath. We reached a door sealed with reinforced steel. Miles used thermite. The fire flared, but even that couldn't chase away the chill bleeding from inside. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a shrine. The walls were carved with spirals and symbols, etched deep into frost. Not random, patterns, rhythmic. The longer I stared, the more they began to move, subtly, pulsing with the rhythm of my own heartbeat. They felt familiar, like something I'd seen in a dream I wasn't supposed to remember. In the center stood a spire, bone and wire, fused together, pulsing faintly with blue-white veins of light. It wasn't machinery, it was alive. Hale dropped his medkit. His breathing went shallow. Then he started whispering, fast, in a language none of us knew. Or maybe we did somewhere deep inside in the parts of the brain that shouldn't remember. Then came the screaming. Hale ripped off his gloves, clawing at his arms. He was sobbing, begging us to help him to get it out. He dug his nails into his own flesh and pulled, slow, deliberate, until black shards pushed through the muscle, glinting in the lamplight. Not bone, not metal, something in between. Miles tackled him. Blood sprayed across the frost. Kessler just stood there watching, humming that lullaby again, eyes glazed, blood streaking his lips. I shouted his name. He turned to me and smiled. "I am where I'm supposed to be," he said softly. That was the moment Miles snapped. He grabbed my vest, hauled me toward the exit, dragging me through the tunnels while the lights stuttered like dying stars. Behind us I could hear metal groaning, and something else moving in the dark. We reached the first level. Miles was shaking, face pale and slick with sweat. He started wiring the hallway with C4, fingers trembling. "If I forget who I am," he said, shoving the detonator into my hand, "don't let me come back." "Promise me, Vega." I nodded. Couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. He turned back toward the darkness without hesitation. I waited 5 minutes. 5 endless, frozen minutes, and pressed the switch. The explosion rolled through the earth like thunder. The ground split beneath me, steel screamed. Ice collapsed in waves. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. The mountain was groaning, shifting. My ears rang from the blast. I stood staggering, the cold biting through my layers. My legs barely obeyed. But I moved, one step at a time. The snow was falling heavier now, wet flakes clinging to my face and melting into my collar. My rifle hung limp. My hands barely worked. My mind was slipping somewhere between memory and nightmare. Every shadow looked like a face I almost knew. Then I saw it. A comms tower, half collapsed, its dish bent and broken like a snapped spine. But it was real. Man-made. Hope. I climbed the slope, stumbled into the wreck, and dug through the emergency kit. My fingers felt like stone, but I got the old radio powered up. Static crackled to life, then a voice. "This is Cop Raven. Identify." I tried to speak, but my throat locked. This is Corporal Vega, Fort Glay. Task Unit Orion. We need evac, please." There was a pause. Then the voice came back, sharper now, lower. "Say again. Did you say Orion?" My chest tightened. "Affirmative. Orion." Silence. Then the voice again, soft, afraid. "Corporal, Task Unit Orion was decommissioned 27 years ago," the radio hissed. My breath froze midair. The cold inside me deepened. Not from the snow, but from something that had come back with me. Something whispering from beneath the ice, waiting to finish what it started.